Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the session today, hosted by the Western Cape region. Hope you had a wonderful Human Rights Day yesterday. We're moving to the Work Skills Plan annual reporting period, which is now due in April, with the possibility of some SETAs providing extensions until end May. Strongs for those almost working day and night to ensure that clients comply. And then obviously we do have some SETAs which are still not operating. We don't have access, they don't have systems in place. We will be getting there. As I say, it's under construction. We recently had a session where we provided feedback on a government gazette published on the 27th of January 2023 by the Department of Higher Education and Training. Quite scary if you look at the information shared, as I call them proposals, but we will keep you posted on any developments there. And then recently we posted a document sent by QCTO called the Skills Development Provider's Guide to Offering Occupational Qualifications, a very useful document and I think very long overdue. So today we have a session on disability BEE. Disability has become a business imperative in South Africa. The disabled section is sometimes misunderstood and three questions pops to mind. Why to have disability integrated? What needs to be in place to integrate disability, and how to integrate disability into the workplace? Employment of persons with disability is a potential financial risk to the business as it carries fines for not complying to employment equity legislation. And we all now know what's going to happen as from August, September this year onwards. You're not going to get your compliance certificate. So our speaker today is Rustim Ariefdien, who was born with a disability diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Rustim is an entrepreneur and achieved a postgraduate diploma in disability studies at UCT. His primary focus is the economic empowerment of differently able persons, taking advantage of the benefits of BEE by using skills development as a leverage through socio-economic development interventions. Rustim started his career in 1984 and had quite an impressive CV and dedicated his life to the empowerment of the disabled. Rustim, we welcome you and thank you for the valuable information you're going to share. You can please add, if I can please ask the participants, if you can just add any questions in the chat box. We will have a session, a Q&A session afterwards. Then we don't interrupt the presentation if you don't mind. So yes, Rustim, over to you.
Thank you very much, Marina, and thank you everybody here to attend this session today. I'm going to do my screen share now. Okay, so my screen is shared and I'm just going to cut my video feed. Right, so what we are meeting here today about is looking at how do you achieve your BBBEE scorecard points and recover your BBBEE spend with disability. So I want to just spend a bit of time giving you a little bit more about my background. I'm going to then switch as to why companies would be interested in looking at BBBEE for disability. Then I'm going to do the scorecard categories, the subcategories, do the analysis of the points available in the scorecard. Then we're going to look at the value of learnerships to recover the BBBEE spend and how that can be done. Then we're moving over to doing learnerships to recover the net profit after tax spend points. Then I'm going to just touch on yes and how that can also be impacted. And then I'm going to do a case study if we have time. Okay, so let me start off with a bit of background. Let me just make this a bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit more in detail as to who I am. So this is part of the boarding session. So yes, I've got a disability. I was born with a disability at birth. I had complications, and the umbilical cord kind of throttled me. And because it did that, there was a lack of oxygen to the brain that then, of course, caused me to have brain cells in the cerebellum that died. And those brain cells created the impairment of the intellectual impairment as well as a physical impairment. I used to walk freely when I was very young. I then moved on to crutches, and ever since Canal Walk opened up, I'm now in a wheelchair. I just couldn't handle the distances in that place. So that is me from a disability point of view. From an education point of view, I went to what is now called an ELSN school. That's a learner for special education needs school, specifically EROS. I matriculated, I was there until standard 7, currently grade 9. I went on to Livingston High, where I did my matric. I spent about 10 years at universities, both UCT and UNISA, trying to get a degree. I failed horribly. I hardly got into first year, but around about 2015, I actually did a postgraduate diploma in disability studies. And what was interesting about it, and that's why I'm mentioning it, is that I was RPL'd for entry. And that has essentially given me from an NQF 4, I jumped to an NQF 8. So it can be done. And later on, I'm going to explain to you how we do something very similar with learners that can't read and write. Then in the disability sector, I just want to tell you about some trends. The one is protective workshops. I come out of a background of protective workshops. This is where persons with disabilities have the opportunity to be able to get work experience funded by the government. And it is a good area to partner with when you are looking for learners, for example. Then the situation on employment equity. The Employment Equity Amendment Act, which is going to come into play later this year, of course, highlights once again why disability employment equity needs to be adhered to. The fines are very, very steep. However, will it actually happen? Nobody knows. From a disability point of view, I don't think much is going to change. However, from a SDF point of view, I think a lot will change and it will become a focal point. So I would think that from ASDSA's point of view, that would be an important development. Then in terms of skills development has taken off very slowly around disability over time. A lot of projects initially came about because of special projects that the CETAs did, because there was no buy-in from employers in South Africa to engage. Things have changed dramatically, and specifically when BBBEE was instituted. And that's where there was a big buy-in into disability. So within disability learnerships at the moment, you find a couple of challenges, serial learnerships, learnership hopping, and also systemic problems with regard to learners not being able to come to class, or learners not being at work. And there's a whole series of reasons as to why there are challenges in that regard. But definitely from a disability sector point of view, skills development has revolutionized opportunities for persons with disabilities. Then our networks, I am a member of the ASDSA. I'm with the Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry as well. At the Cape Chamber, I run their disability process. I sit on the council there. So I run two significant disability events. The one is the Disability Summit for Cape Town. So it's a Cape Town event, it's quite a large event, it's a prestige event. And then also I run the portfolio committee for skills development. This is a new portfolio committee in terms of the Cape Chamber. So the focus is now there. At the Cape Chamber, we've got a process where we're working with the Western Cape government on their network of networks. And it's something that I'm working with Marina on to ensure that ASDSA is there in terms of being party to that, because I think that's going to enhance processes within the network itself, or within ASDSA itself. Then the Western Cape Network on Disability, that's an organization that works within the disability area. It's essentially an advocacy group. And then there's another organization, the Institute for the Promotion of Disabled Manpower, and that's where I have my day job. I am the coordinator there, so that's where I'm employed. There are milestones. I've been to various presidential task teams at a national level looking at disability. I've sat on provincial task teams looking at disability. At Services CETA, I was on their council. So that's just my background. So you can see in terms of who is Rustim, that gives you an idea of who you're speaking to today. And then I'm going to move on to the disabled being a privileged community. Now, when you hear about disability, the official statistics is 7.5% of the population are disabled. You may hear numbers of 2%. It's not 2%. It's 7.5%. And that calculation was done in the census 2010, where they counted 7.5%. However, if you look at the World Health Organization, as well as the International Labour Organization, the average in the world is about 15%. Considering that South Africa is a relatively violent country, you can expect the disability percentage in South Africa to be even higher. So the implication that this is going to have is that the disability employment equity number is probably going to increase. I won't be surprised if it increases from 7.5% all the way up to 15% or more. If that happens, can you imagine what the role of the people who do the employment equity reports and plans, how it's going to have an impact on them? So why am I saying that the disabled is a privileged community? In South Africa, the average South African, that is, they have an income of 350 Rand a month. And there's talks now to increase it a bit. But when you are disabled, then you get 2,080 Rand, and we're all looking forward to a 10 Rand increase in October. So you can see that it's chalk and cheese in terms of what you get paid but as a government grant from 350 Rand if you're not disabled to 2,080 Rand if you are disabled. Also, that social pension grant provides the recipient with lots of benefits in terms of healthcare. For example, you can go to game on a Wednesday and you can get a 10% discount. So there are lots of benefits that the social pension has. So I'm saying that the disabled, we are a privileged community. Where else we are privileged is that if you try and get yourself onto a learnership, you have a very good chance of getting onto the learnership. Generally, when there are recruitment campaigns for learners, when you're disabled, you tend to be snapped up because people really struggle to find the disabled. And let me introduce a concept here about finding a person with a disability. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. Now, what people sometimes forget about, they think, gee, I'm not going to go through this haystack to find a needle. There's one simple tool that you use when you want to find a needle in a haystack, and that is use a metal detector, and you'll easily find the needle. So that's just a bit of a tip for everybody here. If you're looking for disabled people, get a metal detector. So the skills development landscape, where are learnerships going post June 2023? Everybody's panicking about that the registration for learnerships is kind of coming to an end for the SAQA qualifications. We don't know where we stand. And therefore, what I'm seeing happening is that people or companies are starting to buy into learnerships now. Get the registrations of the learnerships now, even though they may only deliver after June. So that is definitely a big trend. Then SARS integration. I don't think enough on SARS is understood within the learnership space. So firstly, in terms of employee tax incentives, whenever I speak to employers, they do not know what employee tax incentives are. Essentially, it's government giving you a total of 18,000 Rand, being 1,500 Rand per month, giving you towards as a cash payment that you claim back of your MP201. They don't know about it. 12H tax allowances is generally known, but I would contend that do companies get the allowances in full? And one of the big challenges that you have in learnerships is your completion rate. Completion generally is not good. Completion in disability, I would contend, is even worse. Then discretionary grant funding from SETAs. It's definitely an advantage to have a disability there. Let me give you an example. Food SETA has one of the best disability grant structures, or grant structures for that matter. They pay 24,000 Rand for training. They give you a 12,000 Rand disability grant for the learner being disabled. They pay, I think it's 36,000 Rand as a stipend, and add another 12,000 Rand if the person has a disability. So their total grant structure is about 84,000 Rand. People apply for disability grant funding or discretionary grant funding, but the benefit of that funding, I don't think is very well understood, specifically in terms of, are they claiming ETI? Are they taking full advantage in terms of the tax allowances? Now, just a comment I want to make on the SDF function. The way I understand how SDFs work, I'm not an SDF myself, even though I'm a member of this organization, is that you essentially work on an hourly rate, or you work on a retainer. However, I want to be able to come back to this statement that I'm going to make now. When you go to a client and you say to a client that I'm your SDF, I'm the person that originates your WSP and your ATR, that contributes towards your compliance, and through that compliance, you're able to get certain other processes, like you may be doing the employment equity, you may be doing certain other things for them as well, but you would be a very primary feed into the BBBEE, because learnerships, that makes up a very important part of the skills development pillar within, or element within the BBBEE. And it's all got to do with the role that SDF plays within that organization. The statement I'm making, if you go to a company, you say to a company, do you need points? Let me put a program together for you to be able to get the points. I am the SDF. I'll work with your BBBEE consultant. I'll source the providers that can assist you, the training providers, maybe the disability support and recruitment providers, in order for you to be able to achieve an objective. And I'm going to show to you later that it is possible to claim back about 150% of the spend in BBBEE. Then don't charge a retainer or don't charge a fee, charge a percentage of the gain that you're giving to an employer. For example, if they can make 150,000 Rand a learn, it would cost them 100,000 Rand. Say to them, you want 10% of the 50,000 Rand that they pocket. Okay, that just gives you more value in terms of your function. Then just BBBEE, a quick overview. It's got 5 elements. There are a couple of sub-elements. I'm going to go specifically to the ones where it touches on disability specifically and more generally. Where is it going? Well, I think that our stay away on Monday has proven that the ANC government is still well in charge, right? They basically flexed their security cluster quite strongly. And so they're not going to go anywhere soon. The EFF was supposed to ensure that Ramaphosa resigned. He didn't. Now, how does this affect BBBEE? I think that government is going to stay fast on BBBEE. So therefore, it's going nowhere, right? What is the impact of BBBEE? But it's very interesting statistic that I picked up out of all the submissions towards the BBBEE Commission, 93% were compliant with regard to socioeconomic development. So it definitely seems that companies are feeling compelled to be able to go into this type of field and ensure that they can at least have a certificate, BBBEE certificate, even if it says non-compliant. So everybody is going for this. So once again, as an STF, how can you leverage your area of focus, which is essentially skills development? How do you leverage that in order to have greater impact? So for me, why BBBEE? It's a business imperative. And from a business imperative level, companies want to get to a desired BBBEE level. That means they want to earn points. And what I'm going to introduce today is how do you recover that BBBEE spend. So that's what my focus of my conversation will be for today. Right, now, let me take you through this particular area of discussion. This is the boring part. Any of you want to go to sleep? I'll strike a gong when I'm done and then you can wake up again. Okay, so on the management element, the sub-criteria there is disability employment equity. You get 2 points if 2% of your workforce are Black disabled people. One thing I must say to you, this is points for Jan. It's 3 points for the following reason. A lot of people will say, oh, we don't have disabled people in our company. We're not ready to accommodate them, da, 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 da. And then I would say to them, you know, do a survey in your company. Ask everybody if they know of any of their colleagues that are mad and there's your disabled people. You'll be amazed what people will say in terms of, and I mean, and I'm probably being crude when I make a statement like that, but the amount of unseen disabilities in the workforce, if we've got probably 15% of our population or more being disabled, then in all probability, we have a high percentage of persons with disabilities in the workforce. They don't want to disclose, that's the biggest problem that there is, but they are there. So if you can help your organizations through employment equity, through disclosure, all of that type of thing, that 2 points is easy to obtain. It doesn't cost anything really. Then on the skills development side, 3.5% of your payroll is your numerical spend, you get 6 points for that. In terms of your learnership targets, it's going to be 5% of your employees, you get 6 points for that. Then a disability spend, and this is why companies are going for the disability specific points. This number of points here, disability employment equity and disability spend, are the 6 points that is for disability only. So in terms of disability spend, you have to spend 0.3% of your payroll. That is less than 10% of that amount there. And that is why a lot of companies that offer solutions around the providing points for BBBEE find that disability is the easy way to go. Then absorption, you can get 5 points there, and people are very creative. Providers are very creative in terms of how they can ensure that the company can get absorption. Then on an enterprise development perspective, through preferential procurement as a Black designated supplier, you spend 2% on procurement, you get the 2 points. So this is something that may not sound that easy, but look at myself, I'm 100% Black owned, disabled run business. And if I do learnership programs for companies, they can claim the 2 points. Now, this is not only for disability, there are other Black designated supplier groups as well. Like, for example, young women is one, people from rural areas is another. I think that this particular opportunity is something missed. And I think if you want to get into BBBEE, see who are the Black designated suppliers that you have access to. Then enterprise development. Let me use myself as an example again. I'll go to an organization, I'll say to them, look, I can provide you with disability. Give me the enterprise development spend that you need, which is 1% net profit after tax, give you 5 points, and I can get the program going. After I've gotten the program going in year 1, I can basically tap into the supply development funding as well, 2% net profit after tax, they get their 10 points. And that is something they can do. Now what is very specific about net profit after tax points is that I can even show them how I can recover 70% of the money they give me, right? How they can recover that back. So I'm going to explain that later. Then there are a couple of bonus points around enterprise development. If I create a job, right, within my own business, because I'm a supplier to them, they're going to get a bonus point, 1 bonus point. If they convert me from year 1 to year 2 from an enterprise development to social, the supplier development, then that's 1 point as well. Then on the socioeconomic development side, and this was a category that I indicated earlier, that they buy into quite a bit. They give 1% their profit after tax. 93% of companies that submitted their certificates or got audited for BBBEE, they essentially spend this 1% their profit after tax. They get 5 points. So that is what's happening there. Now, if you do an analysis of these points, which I'm going to just show you now. There's 2 points in management. There's about 21 points in skills development. Enterprise development has 19 points. And socioeconomic development has 5 points. Now, it doesn't mean that companies will get this entire 47 points, because it could be that they're already scoring the points. And there are certain points that, depending on the circumstances, makes the 47 points climb even more. Like if I've got a completely non-compliant company, I can probably give them over 50 points just through these interventions, because they are so barren. But these points, even if you look at the 6 disability points, you can easily jump from one level to another. So therefore, disability is of extreme interest when it comes to companies and wanting to engage in disability. Okay, so let me move on. Now I'm going to unpack a little bit more around the SARS benefits around disability, right? And this is not, it's disability, but it's also not just completely disability. So I spoke about the tax incentive earlier, 1,500 Rand a month for 12 months of learnership is 18,000 Rand. That is cash that basically reduce the MP 201 in that month as cash in hand. Then you get section 12H. For disability, it's 120,000 Rand at a 27% marginal tax rate. It's 32,400 Rand the company is basically recovering or putting into their pocket. And then the section 11A, which just means that all tax deductible expenses, whatever you spend in terms of skills development, is claimable. Let's say, and I'm going to explain later why I say 100,000 Rand, you get 27% of that, which is 27,000 Rand. Then CETA grants, and I'm use Food Web CETA as an example here. The payment for the training, the stipend, the disability grants, about 84,000 Rand. But generally speaking, you're looking at about 60,000 Rand, 60, 70,000 Rand, depending on the CETA. There are CETAs that pay ridiculously low amounts. FP and M CETA, it's very, very low. But that is there. And then the learnership expenses, essentially, you've got the learner stipend, you've got a training fee, you have a learnership management fee. I just chose a nice round figure of 100,000 Rand. So if you look at your potential recover, you've got a cost of about 100,000 Rand. You're covering 77,400 Rand through the SARS interventions. You're getting about 84,000 Rand through CETA funding. So you're able to recover 161,400 Rand on 100,000 Rand cost. Now, I just want to reiterate here, this 100,000 Rand cost means you're running a learnership. And because you're running a learnership, that is why you're able to recover that money. So you can go to your client, you can say to your client, well, you know, I can recover 61,400 Rand for you. I'm critical in this process. If I don't do the WSP in the ATR, you cannot apply for DG funding. And therefore, if you can't apply for DG funding, you're not going to get this benefit. You can only do self-funded learnerships. So this is a big carrot for, I believe, the SDFs and the training providers who are also members of this organization to be able to benefit from as well. Right, now I'm going to touch on something that I think may even be a little bit controversial. So these are the areas, enterprise development, supply development, and socioeconomic development, where you have the net profit after tax spend points. So I just want to go through that again. In enterprise development, if you spend 1% on a company, so this is just a grant, doesn't matter who the company is, you just kind of give the money to that company. Of course, it's going to be black owned and all of that. Then you're going to get 5 points, right? So companies think carefully about it. Do we want to give a 1% of our net profit after tax to this company? But you know, let us do it. And the reason why we want to do it is we can give the money away, we get the points, and it's give and forget. Okay, it's easy. On the supply development side, that's a little bit difficult because we, as businesses, we're very, very careful about who we take into our in as suppliers. Can you deliver? Right? Even though there are 2 points there, so that's not as lucrative or as easy to do as the enterprise development side. And of course, as I indicated, the socioeconomic development side, you're going to get 5 points for 1% net profit after tax. Now, I want to give you an example of how the recovery is done, but let me go back to skills development. I think it's clear that when you run a learnership under skills development, so you've got a skill spend and you've got your numerical targets and all of that, it's easy to see how implementing the learnership for skills purposes, you are able to recover, in my example, I indicated like 161,000 Rand or 61,000 Rand net, right? I'm clearly demonstrating that. However, if I go to a company, me, Rustim, disabled Rustim, goes to a company and says, allow me to work with your company, and you're going to have to give me this enterprise development grant. Let's say it's 100,000 Rand, just to kind of give a good comparison. Give me the 100,000 Rand. I will give you a note, evidence that you need, that you gave me the 100,000 Rand. You're going to have proof of payment that you paid me, and we're all good, except I will work for that 100,000 Rand. So instead, in other words, I'm working for free because I'm not really going to invoice you. Now, because I am working for free, that 100,000 Rand can be a learnership, and therefore whatever they can recover because they're doing the learnership actually means that they no longer, that they've recovered that 100,000 Rand that they spent on me, they're going to recover to whatever the extent it is that they're going to recover it. Now, socioeconomic development is also a very interesting one. Similarly, it's the same argument that you have for all these three categories. But the social economic development, I partner with disability suppliers. And these are people that does recruitment, they do the hosting of the learners, they do the disability support, the reasonable accommodation, they do all of those things. And I say to them, please, disability NPO, would you, of course, want this funding? Absolutely, give it to us. But are you prepared to work in exchange for the funding? And in most cases, absolutely, we would want to work for it. Because remember, for the NPOs, they need the money, but they have a mandate to be able to empower persons with disabilities. So it's an easy conversation to have. And I think that this is something that I haven't seen come up often. And it's definitely something that I'm working towards exploiting, if I can use such a strong word. Then just on yes is not really bought into very, very well. It costs 70,000 Rand, you know, to put somebody into yes. You can move up a level if you absorb 2.5% of all the workers that you engage on, yes, and 2 levels if you absorb them 5%. Now, the one thing that the yes legislation says very emphatically, they say you cannot do learnerships on yes. Now, I'm contesting that with them because I'm saying, if I'm doing learnerships for skills development, so in other, for BBBEE purposes, I can understand it's double dipping. But if I engage a yes learner, a yes worker, then they're just working for me. And I say, look, I want to enhance your skills level. Okay, I'm going to place you onto a learnership for the 12 months that you are with me. What's wrong with that? In my opinion, there's nothing wrong. And I'm busy speaking to yes to kind of give me a response on that. But by putting them onto a learnership program, surely I can get the benefits of tax, right? And maybe even CETA funding for that particular intervention. Like I said, I'm not sure whether it can work, but if it can work, it will make a huge difference. Okay, so I'm going to I'm basically come to the end of the presentation, but I want to just give you a bit of a case study, and then I'm just going to show you a spreadsheet that's very confusing. But essentially in the spreadsheet, I'm going to show you a scenario of a company that has a turnover of 50 million. Sorry, that's a bit of a mistake there. So now this is a generic enterprise, right? And I'm going to show how this company, in this example, they're going to earn 50 points because I'm doing the intervention with them directly. And at a BBBEE spend of about R1 million. So what I'm going to show you is how, in this type of scenario, people are able to do the 2% of their turnover basically is a BBBEE spend. So you can see, it's just another tax, and it's a huge tax on top of the 27% that's already paying SARS. And then the reason why the recovery is 70% plus, where I showed you earlier something like 160%, because I'm making the assumption that there's no DG funding from a CETA. So let me just, so when I show it to you, because these are rather a bit busy, the spreadsheet, when I show it to you, then you will understand that. So I'm going to just switch from one presentation to the other. Give me a second, please. Okay, so this is the spreadsheet. Right. It's busy, so I'm just going to run through a couple of things with you, and it's just trends. Don't worry about the numbers, it's just the trends. So I'm going to a company and I'm saying to a company, okay, fine, what are your critical information that I need in order for us to give a calculation of your BBBEE? They do 50 million turnover, they do a 20 million rand payroll, they do procurement of 10 million, their net profit after tax is 8 million, and they employ 50 people. That's the scenario that I've got. Then I'm indicating what are the elements that I'm working with, and please note, no ownership. There are disability specific points in ownership, but that's a very, very difficult category to try and unpack. Then I'm unpacking what the subcategories are, and then I'm indicating what the element criteria are, and then I'm indicating the amount of points that they can earn. And here are categories that you can just ignore for this presentation, and that is the enterprise development points that you earn for being compliant, qualifying EME, or being a black supplier. That's why you get these small little points here. That's why I indicated to you that they get much less. So through this intervention, in this example, they need to spend the 1 million rand. Now, there are a couple of spends here that is not included in what's payable. And the reason for that is that this company that's on a 20 million rand payroll has to spend 700,000 rand in terms of the spend for skills development. But within that 700,000 rand, the 60,000 rand for disabilities included. What's also included, because they're working with me, they basically don't have to pay the 200,000 black designated spend again. Okay, so if you had to add the 1.1 million to the 260,000, it will be basically 1.3 million rand. So I'm saving them a lot of money by putting all of this together. So out of all of this, I'm saying to them, why disabled? So you're getting your points, you are recovering 70% on your intervention spend, you can provide qualification for disabled youth, you're supporting a non-profit organization and a learner with special education needs schools that we have and that we can engage in the program. Empowering a disabled owned enterprise, being my business, and you're also developing the enterprise disabled candidate pool. So in other words, these are now people that are qualified they can either go directly into employment or they can go further on to learnerships as well. Okay, then I want to show you the next thing, and this one is even more complicated. Okay, now this is essentially what the benefits are for them to run the learnership. Don't worry about anything else in the spreadsheet. Okay, but just this. This is what I was saying earlier. The employee tax incentive, you'll notice it's a little bit lower than the 18,000 Rand. I'm going to explain that to you a bit later. It's a horrific story, but anyway, I'll show it to you. Then the 12H allowance is broken up into the commencement allowance and the completion allowance. And then you've, of course, got the tax deduction as well based on that 100,000 Rand. In fact, in this case, it's only 89,000 Rand. So why is the ETI less? And the reason why the ETI is less is because the stipend is less. This is absolutely interesting, right? And that is that companies miss the fact, I think, that you can pay a learner 1,660 Rand a month based on the Minimum Wage Act. Okay, now you'd ask the question, gee whiz, these disabled people are already so disadvantaged, we're going to basically steal from them as well. And that's not always the case, because in disability, and especially in these models, they get that additional 2,000 Rand. And essentially, we run a model at Elson schools, whereby the Elson school recruits the person, hosts the learner, supports the learner, and they get placed within the operational sections within the school. They get fetched at home, they get taken home, all of that type of thing, and that's why this is coming across. So I thought, let me just qualify that in terms of what I said earlier. But this is basically an example of something and not really necessarily the entire process. So you can see I charge a lot of money, 70,000 Rand just to run the learnership. I am probably one of the most expensive people around in terms of that type of pricing. So it costs the company about 90,000 Rand. The SARS benefit is 65,000 Rand. The net cost is 23,000 Rand or 24,000 Rand almost. And basically the saving, the cost recovery that I'm demonstrating in this example is about 73%. So now go back to my previous spreadsheet. And in my spreadsheet, I'm basically saying the financial cost of 1,080,000, and the reason why it's 1,080,000 because they're running 12 learnerships and it's an additional spend that's over and above that 1.02 million. The financial benefits nearly 800,000, and therefore the cost recovery is 73%. In addition to this, how do these points that I'm demonstrating to a company take them up their levels? Okay, and how do they achieve those levels? And just as a matter of interest, why are they doing this? I go to them and I say to them, I'll apply for a self-funded learnership with a CETA. I'll recruit the learners for them. I'll credit them. I'll host them. I'll support them. The project management done and the CETA administration is done. Now, these things, right, specifically the project management and the CETA administration, there are very few, and the application for self-funded learnership, there are very few people that know how to do this. But I would imagine that all the SDFs sitting on this call today know exactly what to do. So you've got a very, very good skill that I think will allow you to be able to sell your services to companies. And therefore, I want to end off with something that I said earlier. HR is the lost division within a company. I think that external HR people are the Cinderellas of the industry, right? So you guys do a hell of a lot of work, and very often it feels like you get stung for donkey. But I think if you can take your power back and you can demonstrate to your client that, look, I can add this value by being able to do what I know I'm doing, the WSP, the ATR, the application for DG funding, all of that type of process, which is pivotal to working with your BBBEE consultants, working with your accountants and your auditors, because there's a lot of tax things involved. You can actually go to them and say, listen, I don't charge a fee. I don't charge an hourly rate. I'm going to charge you what it is that I can save you. People look at you differently, because for them to give you 10%, 15%, whatever percent of nothing, right, doesn't hurt them. Giving them you 10% of money they would not have heard, that they would not have had, is also, a no-brainer in terms of that. So, okay, I've been speaking for 15 minutes, non-stop. Let me hand over for questions. Arena, do I hand back over to you?
Thank you, Rustim. That is very valuable information. Are there any questions for Rustim? You can either ask the question by indicating, or you can put it in the chat box.
But I know while we wait for people to respond, I want to make an offer to everybody. So I am prepared to sit down with anybody that is interested in having a look at this model in a one-on-one, in order to kind of show you how I do it and the types of programs that I've done. So something that I touched on, which I would go into more detail, is how we work with the Elton School, the protective workshops, in order to place learners with disabilities, get learners with disabilities onto BBBEE interventions. The sad thing is that companies generally do not want to see the disabled. They just want the benefits of the disabled. So I'm prepared to sit down with that. But I must say, I do charge exorbitantly expensive fees. So I just want to give you my fee structure for the session that I am offering. If you buy me a cup of coffee, you'll get the standard presentation. If you add a piece of cake, I'll give you the premier presentation. So anybody that would like to touch base with me, please let me know.
That is absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions, everybody? Okay, Rustim, we do have a question here. Yeah. How do you suggest we make our offerings attractive enough for learners to take up learnerships, internship opportunities, as they understand that the individual loses out on the disability grant should they take up an employment opportunity? Thanks, Angela.
Okay. So in essence, you are correct, but you are saying if they take up an employment opportunity. Now, while they are a learner, they are employed, but the learnership allowance is generally much lower than the means test that SASSA applies for them to be able to earn for them to get the disability grant. You'll also note that the disability grant has got a tiered structure. So if you earn a certain rate, then you start losing part of your disability grant until you hit another rate, and then you will lose it completely. So generally, if you become a taxpayer, and I think the tax level is about 80,000 Rand, I could be wrong, 70, 80,000 Rand. If you're earning that much, then you would lose the disability grant. But if you're earning the general stipend, and the stipends now range between 3,000 and 5,000, you kind of still relatively safe. You may lose, if you go to 5,000 Rand, you may lose part of your disability grant, but not the entire amount. When you get employed, then that's a different matter. But then again, the question then is, you now have a job, you are empowered, do you still want the grant? You know, are you still a burden to the state if you are empowered? So yeah, that's a different story. While a learner, not a problem, okay? But when you get employed, then yes, it will change. There are people that keep their disability grants, they're able to fool DSD. It's easy to fool DSD. I'm sure everybody has the horror stories of the payouts that they do and nobody can address it. But yeah, it's with learnerships, no problem generally. With employment, yes, they will lose their disability grant. And yes, people are scared of it. But then again, one is also going to ask the question whether if they want to stay earning the disability grant, they're more comfortable, they're sitting at home, they're doing nothing, that's their choice. But you will find people that's interested in the job. Okay.
Thank you, Rustim.
Yeah.
We've got another question from, it's Melanie. With the YES program, the numbers or headcounts are dictated by the company's turnover. This becomes challenging because we cannot absorb all the learners. How else can we participate in this? Okay, the YES program has a 2-syllable word attached to it. No. Okay, that's the 2-letter symbols, symbol word associated with it. That is why, if you have a look at a series of BBBEE certificates, you'll notice that people don't go into YES because the way it is structured is as a deterrent. So just to put YES into perspective, YES is saying that if you have jobs that you would generally have in a company, so this is high turnover jobs that you have, maybe within the retail sector, the business process outsourcing sectors, all of those type of sectors where the turnover of staff is very high. In their instance, it's worth it for them to go for YES because they are naturally taking people in to their companies, and therefore for them to place the learners on minimum wage, or workers in this case, on minimum wage within the company is a no-brainer because they are an employment creator, right, or job creator, but their job creation may be purely because of circumstance and the turnovers of staff that they have there. So for them, it's easy. If you're looking at absorption, and this is where YES is very good. So let's say it says you've got to engage 100 people to be compliant with YES. So you engage the 100 people because you need the 100 people. So, you know, you might as well be part of YES. Only, I think it's 1%, I forgot what the number was earlier, right? But it's a very small percentage that needs to be converted from the YES program into permanent employment. Now, if you are dealing with 100 people, in all probability, there's going to be maybe 5 or 3 people that's going to really be people that you don't want to let go of. So then you automatically hit those thresholds. And I think that people don't understand what YES is all about. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm saying, if you take that 60, 70,000 Rand cost of YES, and you can subsidize it by placing the person on a learnership and getting the benefits that I've described, you will reduce your cost. And not only that, the person has an opportunity to get a full qualification, plus the experience that they get. And from a company point of view, you have the tax allowances as well. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to raise with YES to see whether they will allow learnerships in that instance. So it's not for BBBEE purposes, and they may not even allow CETA grant funding in that situation. But if it's self-funded, why can't we take somebody that we are self-funding and put them onto a qualification? Doesn't make sense that they won't allow it. Okay, next. Then we've got another, it's maybe just a note, but from Michael. Thank you, Rustim, for such valuable information. Just a comment. The problems I have found with the understanding of implementing disability learnerships is that the employer does not have a broad understanding and awareness regarding the definitions of a person with disability, as well as how to provide reasonable accommodation for people with disability in the workplace.
Okay, so this is partially the reason why there's this very strong interest in employers wanting to engage in disability, because the financial benefits are absolutely wonderful, right? But it's these comments that detract from the attraction of learnerships. Now, there's a simple thing about who's disabled. right? If a doctor says you're disabled, because that's the requirements with regard to the definition of learnerships. So, and I know there's a lot of issues around that. There's a lot of fake certificates going around and all of that type of thing. But the rule is, if you have a doctor's certificate that says you have a disability, the person is disabled. Then in terms of employment readiness for disability, there's a whole process of disability awareness that you can take them through, sensitization you can take them through. You can look at access, we call it universal design, or access audits and all of that. You can do all of that in terms of readying them for their disability journey. Now, employment equity plans needs to be resubmitted this year. They start the new 5-year cycle again. And you can then have these type of interventions in terms of working towards the company becoming compliant. By all means, 100%, that's the way to go. What I'm saying is that this conversation is around BBBEE. People want the points, they don't want the hassle. Okay, so I'm going to say something rather profound. So companies, what they do, and I'm going to qualify the crude way of how I'm putting it. When companies want to engage with the disabled, right, for BBBEE purposes, and let's say it's self-funded, and they're going to get their 70% recovery on the spend, we ask them, please, will you come to the induction orientation? Because it's very, very important for the learners to be able to see the company that they are working for, even though they're being hosted and trained outside of the company. What then happens is we take all those learners and we load them onto a bucket, right? So they're stacking like sardines, they become an accident risk on the roads. We drive them down to the local docks. We put them in a container, onto a container ship, and we spin them around the world for a 12-month period. Now, that's putting things very, very crudely, okay? And there's a lot of human rights violations. So Human Rights Day was only yesterday, it doesn't apply for today. That's what I'm saying. Now, that is what we say to people, and they don't like what we say, but that's in reality how businesses treat the disabled. What we actually do is that we intercept the bucky on the way to the docks. And we actually say to these people, look, here's an opportunity for you to go and work in a community organization, in a protective workshop, in a church, in an Elson school, like I described earlier on, so that you can get the experience and the qualification through this particular event. What we then do is, at the end of it all, we ask this employer company, can you please come to at least give these people a graduation? And that's where they see the people again. And then the employer feels really chuffed. Wow, they got 100% success rate. They thought that there would be attrition. People would die in the container. Okay, and it's quite funny how we can put it to people. But that's exactly what it is that we look at. So I think you must make a distinction between the employment side of things, right? And then it's a process that I described earlier, or BBBEE. At the end of the day, you need to be able to meet the need of the client. And what I'm suggesting are methodologies for you as practitioners within the HR field to meet the needs of the client. Over to you, Marina.
Thanks, Rustim. Yes, I must actually agree with you. Some of my clients also just see them at the end or the beginning and the end. So yeah. Okay. I think if there's no other questions, thank you very, very much, Rustim. Very much, valuable information that you've shared. I like to work with you, definitely. Then I just want to, I think, we've put in the link for the 1 CPD point that you can earn. Please complete that now, not at a later stage, if you don't mind. The recording will be shared on the WhatsApp group, and it will be available also on YouTube. And yeah, feel free to contact Rustim. He is an ASDSA member. If you want to set up an appointment with him, the coffee, the muffin, or the slice of cake, yes, you can do that. So if there's no other further questions, we can close the session.
Can I just make a final comment? Thank you once again to ASDSA in terms of allowing me to present today. And please take me up on the copy. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. And it doesn't matter where you are, okay? I see you, Joburg. You know, nowadays, just you can Uber Eats me or Bolt food me, it's fine. It's doable. Okay. Thank you, Marina.
Thank you all. Bye.